Hey there everybody, I'm Joey Hollywood, and I'm a pretty big Star Trek fan. I know I don't talk about it much on this channel, but it's been one of my favorite things since I was a little kid. I have a lot of fond memories watching Star Trek with my family. Every Thursday night we'd buy honey barbecue boneless wings from KFC and we'd just watch a couple hours of Star Trek. It's something I look back on very fondly. And as an adult, I have every Star Trek show on DVD and in some case Blu-ray. Hashtag release DS9 on Blu-ray. I was throwing out some of my first impressions of the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery when a friend of mine said, why don't you just make videos about this instead of just making endless tweets or posts? And I do have quite a lot to say about this show, so I thought it'd be a good idea to go back to episode 1, recap a couple of my thoughts on it before we get to the episodes that are currently airing, which at this point I just saw episode 3 like a day or two ago, so we're not too far behind. So I just went back and watched episode 1 of season 2 entitled Brother, and the episode opens up with a recap of the first season, which the tone of season 1 and season 2 was so jarring, and I think the intro to this season really showcases that. It's so dark and brooding for the first season, and this season's really more lighthearted and fun and adventurous. You can tell that they've heard the criticism so far. Also, I'm not sure if this actually happened last season, but when Lorca falls into the engine during the flashback, it sounds like they used a sound effect from Star Wars. It sounds like a TIE fighter. Am I the only one that hears that? They show us some footage of the Hubble telescope. The narration by Michael Burnham feels really clunky and awkward, and I'm not sure if it's just bad dialogue or if the actress's delivery is just awful. Maybe it's a combination of the two. There's a flashback to when Michael meets Spock for the first time, and I'm not sure if this was in season 1, but planet Vulcan looks beautiful, like something out of Tolkien's elven homeland. And that, got my brain going. Vulcan is a hellish desert. They develop secondary eyelids due to the harsh environments. Planet Vulcan here looks like paradise. It struck me as odd, that's all I'm going to say. During this flashback, Saavik asks a little Burnham if she'd like to meet Spock. And when they do this, the weirdest sequence of events happens. Saavik tells Spock that he wants him and Burnham to be friends, and that's so weirdly out of character for him to say. Like, Saavik would probably say something along the lines of, oh, this is my son Spock. Spock, I want you to represent Vulcan. I expect you to represent Vulcan. He would say something, kind of cold. That's something I've come to expect from this character, after like 50 years. But Saavik in this whole show seems to act more human than Leonard Nimoy's Spock ever did. So I'm not sure why that took me by surprise. Spock starts throwing up holograms and it's just weird. He makes a dragon. And then you see Spock's dorky little face and he shuts the door on Burnham like a little brat. The whole scene just altogether weird. Then we cut to the ending of season 1 where Disabled Enterprise meets Discovery. This is when Pike and 2 of his officers bring aboard and they beam individually. And it's a very good looking shot, but it really stuck out to me as kind of weird because in 50 years of Star Trek, I don't recall this kind of thing ever happening. Like, they always beam at the same time. They never beam individually unless there's some sort of circumstance for that to be the case. And maybe there was here, but there was no dialogue to suggest that. And I think the only reason why they did it was they wanted to have this big reveal that the science officer isn't Spock. And they do this by showing a close-up of his ear. Like, it's not pointed. I don't know, it's kind of hilarious. And this is where we meet Pike. And I'm really surprised. I was really hesitant on the choice for Captain Pike. And he kind of won me over in this episode. I think he really pulls off this character. 2 reboots of Star Trek, and I think some of the best casting choices were both Pike. Yeah, but he comes off really friendly. He has that air about him that the original Captain Pike does. While he's also doing his own thing, it's definitely not an impression. And the more I watch him in this show, the more I wish this show was about Pike and his crew than Michael Burnham and the crew of the Discovery. Pike is taking command of the Discovery because there's these red signals appearing all over the Milky Way, I guess. And as they're transferring the leadership of the Discovery to Captain Pike, Tilly has to be awkward and unfunny. I know people say that they think that she is the heart of this show, but I cannot stand Tilly. I cannot stand her at all. I think she is horribly unfunny. All her quote unquote jokes or relatable moments, they just feel forced and weird. And something that I think that's kind of funny is after an entire year of this show, here we are in season 2, and we finally meet the bridge crew. Like, they finally gave them names in the show. I just can't believe that they waited a year to do this. I noticed that they're giving a lot of these bridge crew characters a little bit more screen time. They're fleshing them out, kind of. Which is awesome, because I finally get to know the name of the most beautiful character in the whole show. This is Joanne. Move over to Paul, Troy, 7 of 9. There's a new heartthrob. They go to one of the red signals and they appear dangerously near an asteroid, which I thought was kind of weird. It feels like the writers don't know the difference between hyperspace and warp. Maybe I just interpreted things wrong, but I don't know, it was odd. They find a Starfleet ship stranded on the asteroid, and Pike really wants to help whoever's down there. Saru starts immediately explaining why it'd be very difficult and be too dangerous, and Pike isn't having it. But then Burnham chimes in, mirroring Saru's statements. But Pike interrupts her, saying he's not leaving them down there to die. And then she says, "I'm offering a solution, you interrupted me." I get what they were trying to do here, but it might have helped if they didn't have her starting off with how it would not be possible to save these people on the ground. Like, propose your idea first instead of offering info Pike already knows. I think it was just a poorly done moment. Especially up to this point, Pike has just been really, really nice. Even in this moment, I really feel like he was being a good captain. The scene that follows Pike, his 2 officers from the Enterprise, and Burnham, like, space jet through the asteroid field. It's like something from the JJ movies or Star Wars. I didn't really care for it. I admit it looked kind of cool, but you can definitely see where they went over budget. On this asteroid, they meet a comedian that I've never found funny. And a lot of her dialogue, it sounds like she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about.
Relax. Tellarite blood's rich in hemerythrin. The only place on Earth you'll find anything like it is marine invertebrates. Evolution's a fickle bitch, am I right?
And from the interviews, she kind of confirms that she didn't.
I have no idea what I'm saying on that show.
She's been keeping her crew alive with some sort of Frankenstein technology, and they're going to try to beam them to Discovery, and for some reason this means the Discovery has to lower their shields way before they even need to. Like, they lower their shields, they get hit by a bunch of asteroids, like a minute later, then they beam over. Like, why? Why not drop the shields, beam them over, raise the shields, and rinse and repeat? I found this, like, really frustrating, and maybe they could have explained it with a line of dialogue, but I've watched this twice, and it's just, there's no reason for it. They beam everyone to the Discovery except for Burnham due to some sort of equipment malfunction. She gets knocked out. When she comes to, she sees what looks like a red angel, but it appears to be just a hallucination because Pike runs right through it. After they rescue Burnham, they do some sort of risky maneuvering to get a piece of an asteroid. And I don't know, I just didn't care about this. It just felt tacked on. Plus Tilly's, "This is the power of math, people," felt really awkward and unfunny. And I think the actor playing Stamets knows it, because, yeah, all he says is like, "Yeah, you're right." He just looks so bored.
This is the power of math, people! Come on!
You are correct, Ensign. You are correct, Ensign.
Pike has a piece of a fortune cookie that says not every cage is a prison, and I guess that's some sort of Easter egg, some sort of foreshadowing to where his character ends up in Star Trek the original series. The episode ends with the revelation that Spock is in a mental asylum on Starbase 5, and why is it always Starbase 5? But when Burnham's looking through his stuff, she finds out that Spock knew about these red signals months before they appeared. And that's kind of where we're left off. We do have some interesting character stuff with Stamets mourning the death of his husband. He's watching an old recording of his husband, and it's shot so weird. The actor who plays his husband, his acting in this recording feels like something from a daytime soap opera. It's really strange.
Oh, I know you say you hate it and that you only do it for me, but I do love it when you only do things for me. I love it. All right,
One thing I think was a noticeable improvement with this series in this particular episode is that a lot of the characters act a lot warmer towards each other. It's not so dire, they're not so grim, and I think that was a welcomed change of pace for this show. Like, even in the last episode where everyone's, getting medals and patting each other on the back, it really felt very grim. And it didn't really feel deserved. And I know that they're in a war here, but we've seen them from the beginning, and they have not changed at all from the beginning of the series to the end of the series. They were just constantly bickering the whole time. And in this season, they seem to be a lot more friendly with one another, and I appreciated that. It seems like the creators of the show are kind of listening to the fans, because I know I'm not the only one that had that complaint. But overall, I think this episode was just a real mixed bag. I don't really care about the plot they're setting up with the red signals and the red angel. Michael Burnham just feels like a waste of space. The more interesting characters are Saru and Captain Pike. But it was a little bit more lighthearted, and it was more in the vein of the J.J. Abrams movies, which I'm not a fan of the J.J. Abrams movies, but I liked those movies a little bit more than a bulk of what I saw in Season 1 of Discovery. Well, I think this is a good place to end it. This episode's actually for free on YouTube currently. I don't know how long that's going to be up, but if you want to watch this episode for free, you can. And if you've already seen it or you're about to see it, come back here. Tell me what you thought of it. I'd very much like to hear your opinion on it. As always, I'm Joey Hollywood, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Remember, please be kind and rewind.